Let's talk mental health. If you're someone like me who is suffering and having a hard time, just know you're not alone. But in that case, let's hear about why my mental health is feeling the way it is currently. Hi everybody, my name is Alexandra and welcome back to my channel if you're someone who has watched me before, or welcome aboard if this is the first time you're seeing my face. So let's talk about how I got diagnosed with mental health issues. I basically have been suffering from mental health issues since high school, but I wasn't fully diagnosed until 5 years ago. I basically was diagnosed with anxiety, postpartum depression, and some other stuff, but those are the two main things. Since I've been diagnosed, I have been getting resources brought to me, brought to getting help, because honestly, let's face it, mental health happens for a lot of us, and sometimes people are scared to get the help, or they just don't want to get help at all. In my case, I knew I needed to get help for my mental health because 5 years ago I became a parent and I didn't know anything about taking care of a child, let alone trying to take care of myself after I gave birth. But thanks to the help I have been getting, I am doing better, but I have been having a step back recently. Since I have been dealing with my mental health and everything, which yes, you'll hear about this and this as you keep watching. But basically, I started in a new job about 3 weeks ago, and basically I already knew in my heart that it was something I had to do. Did I want to do it personally? At the time, no, because I already had another job, but my other job was done for the summer, and I knew I wasn't going to be going back to my job I had until the new school year started. My job title is bus monitor / aide for middle school and elementary kids, and I only do that during the school year. When it's summertime, I don't get called in unless my dispatch or my boss will let me know. As far as I know, and I know it's going to probably stay at this point, but as far as this whole summer has gone, I have not worked, not even once, prior to what I'm explaining now. My last day of work was actually June 17th, so just about 2 months ago, almost. And I was, in a way, starting to miss it not long after my last day. I was doing okay otherwise. I was just nervous about finances because I personally have been laid off before, but I wasn't expecting to not make really an income that much in July. Starting around early July is when my mental health was starting to get me stressed out again. I basically was getting to the point where I was very depressed and very emotionally not happy with myself because I felt like it wasn't fair to my husband, who I'm very grateful for, to pay for our bills and not having me help at all. My husband was very supportive about it. Like, he knew I was trying my best, but he knew there was not much I could do other than for me trying to do the best I could. I honestly was grateful that my husband was supportive about what was going on and everything, but I still felt very lost for words. I basically found out around 4 weeks ago that when I tried to file for unemployment from my job, because even though I was still technically employed at my job, my boss had told any of us that weren't going to be working that we had to file for unemployment. I actually suffer from a learning disability, and sometimes I don't adapt well with certain situations, such as filing for unemployment. I don't do well doing it by myself, so I usually have to have somebody there to help me out. But I honestly was very upset and discouraged when I found out I was denied, which I figured it was going to be something like that because either I didn't work enough, because at the time I was only working 7 to 8 months at my job. So it's either because I didn't work enough or I answered something incorrectly. And honestly, I'm trying to get it appealed, so that's a relief, but it was still very hard for me. I was grateful I got the help that I needed to try to get me to actually understand what some of these questions were, but even to this day, I still sometimes get confused with some of these questions being asked. Even if someone explains it to me, I still sometimes just have a hard time remembering it. So I'm grateful that those who have been helping me out actually have been very, very, very supportive. Very supportive. But it's not been easy. Like I said, I've been grateful for the help, but it's not been easy. So after all this situation happened where I wasn't gonna get anything from work until I knew it was gonna get appealed, which thankfully I'll be able to get reimbursed something until I find out when my appeal is happening. But thankfully my boss from my job is gonna be with me on this call, so I'm grateful for that. But I also hope and pray it goes well. So after I found out I was denied from unemployment, I said to my husband, I may just have to look for another job, just until my other job starts up again. My husband was very supportive about what I was going to do, but he told me, whatever you decide to do, I still support what you do. Even if you're working or if you're not working, we'll get by the best we can. And my husband already works full-time at his job, so he was making enough for what we had to get by, but it wasn't easy. Definitely not easy at all. But once I, put my names in for a few jobs, I called a few jobs just to see if they were looking for help. Some of them I put in applications, and then some wouldn't even take me because of the lack of hours I was able to work. Mind you, I was also on disability from the state, and from what I had found out earlier last month, so early July, I had found out, even before I was denied for benefits and stuff. This was way before I even found out I was denied. I was told basically that if I got an increase in my job, whether it was the pay was going to go up, something like that, or working more hours, my disability was going to get cut. And mind you, this really hurt me. I was mentally depressed, really upset, and just full of emotions. So I just said, after I found out the pay was going to go up at my job, which I'm very grateful for the pay, because I wasn't getting much of anything from disability anymore. I kept trying to fight to get the money back that they owed me. And thankfully, I did get it back, and I got it back earlier this month. It took a while, but I'm grateful I got it paid back. And I'm not going to lie, once this month got here, and I was able to get the remainder of what I needed to pay my portion from July, I still was able to get it turned in. And thankfully, where me and my husband and our son live, they were very understanding about it. And they just told us, do what you can, and we will still take whatever it is. So that was a relief. So now comes to the mid to end of July. I was actually still looking for a job. Didn't matter what it was. I just wanted to make sure I could find something to do until my other job returned. Thankfully, I actually called up one job after I did the application for one job. And thankfully, within the same day I actually did the application, which wasn't very long, I talked to the boss, the head boss, and he basically told me the same day that I did it, he asked me to come in for an interview between today or tomorrow. I was very, very grateful. And I just wanted to hope for the best because, like I said, July was not an easy month for my family and I. So I'm very honored and I'm very grateful that when I had the interview, that I explained everything about my situation and everything. It wasn't with the head boss, it was actually with his assistant manager. So if I had gotten the job, it would have been with the assistant manager. And thankfully, I had the interview with the assistant manager. He completely understood my situation. He was almost in the same boat one time for him and his family, so he completely understood. He did tell me right there and then I would probably have to wait about a week for a response. And honestly, I said, okay, that's fine. We'll go from there. But about 2 days later, I had a mindset that I needed to do this fast because I was so desperate to get money again and work. So I called within 2 days. They told me if I wanted to come back in and talk to management again, then I could. So 2 days later, I walked back over to where the job was. I explained to them that I needed to really get an income like fast because I was just really needing to work. So went in, talked to the same manager who interviewed me, and then he told me, within maybe a few days he'll get back to me. So within minutes, I left where I was at the building, where the job was, and I had just gotten home. I was talking to my neighbor. All of a sudden I hear my phone ring, and it was one of the managers at the job. And I answered it quickly. Obviously, I tried not to get my hopes up, but he did ask me what my availability was looking like. And I flat out gave what my availability was like. And then he said he would get back to me within a few minutes. Within like 5 minutes, I got a phone call saying, you got the job. I was so happy and just relieved that I was actually able to get a job, and that it was going to work out. It was going to work out. I thanked the manager so much because he told me within a few days I was going to wait for something, and it ended up being only like it wasn't even an hour later, and I found out that I got the position. So honestly, I didn't care what the position was. As long as I got the job and I got the money, I was happy. So within maybe over a week or so later, I started my training. For my training, it lasted probably a couple days, something like that, 2 days, and then I went back the following week for another few days, and then started to do more from there. Now, this is where my mental health got a little stressed out again. Basically, I was getting trained by one of the employees I had to work with, which everyone had told me, if you have any questions or something like that, you can ask her. Like I said, I'm not going to say names. I'm just going to go by him or her if I say anything. I just want to keep their names private, and I just don't want to say it. Like I said, I'm just going to refer as him or her. So, of course, being said, I was new to the job. I didn't know a lot. Obviously, I didn't know anything of what to do other than what I had been told what to do and how to do it, things like that. Eventually, I had different people trying to train me, but the one person who was willing to train me ended up causing my mental health to go bad again. Bad as in stressed out again. I remember this happened just almost a week ago. I was at work and I couldn't remember how to make one of the things that I was taught during my training. And that one person who trained me gave me an attitude, basically trying to think I was not worth the job. They didn't say that, but the way they were treating me made it sound like they didn't want me there. I basically I never got a thank you from the coworker. If there was a mistake, I would say thank you, being respectful and everything. Or if I had a question, I'd say thank you after they tried to explain it to me. And I still got an attitude. I still got talked with disrespect. Eventually, I knew I had to report this to management, because no one should ever be insulted for something that you don't know what to do. So I brought it up to management, and I quickly said to management, I have never been so disgusted by somebody like this. You know, I have been nothing but nice, and this is what I get, is disrespect. And thankfully management understood. It was only assistant managers. It wasn't my boss, because my boss was out for the last few days, so he didn't really know much what was going on except for the day that all this happened. And I didn't have time to really talk to him one-on-one that day, because he was the only manager on. And sometimes when there is more than one manager, that the boss can actually have one of the assistant managers run with some of the other employees, and then the boss can try to talk to you. But in that case, I couldn't talk with my boss that day, because my boss was running the store by himself and no other manager was coming in. Eventually, I explained the day after this happened. I came home emotionally and physically draining me, and just my mind was all in different directions. I basically then at that point started to lose weight a little bit, started to not have an appetite to eat, I started to have a decrease in my thirst, and I basically felt just very, very, very anxious and exhausting, but mostly very, very upsetting. Once I reported to management, mostly it was my assistant managers. One of my assistant managers, who was also the one who trained me, he didn't train me, but he did talk to me. He's the one who interviewed me. And he completely understood the situation. He has seen people get upset, seen people get mad. He's seen all of it. And he told me, he was calm about it, and he said to me, I'm going to have to tell the boss if the boss doesn't respond to you faster, or to you first too. My boss is always at different locations, so he's not always at my location where I work. He's at different ones, but he will come to mine as well. So eventually I knew I had to I thanked my assistant manager for actually trying to tell him. I tried to text my boss trying to tell him, but I knew he was going to be very busy those next few days. But if he did get back to me sooner, obviously I would have went over and talked with him face to face, because I knew text message or email was not going to cut it. Face to face is what I really wanted to do. So eventually I tried texting the next day after that, and my boss was not working that day. He was off, but I was asked to come in the day after to talk to him. So I went in the next day. I called, and he answered the phone, and he told me at a certain time I can come in and wait for another manager to come in, and then I could talk to him alone. Eventually, I wasn't working, obviously, those next few days. I wasn't scheduled. I was off. I had the days off, so I wasn't getting my hours cut. I just had the days off. Eventually, I made the effort to go talk to my boss, and he pretty much knew everything that was going on from what he was told. And basically, he told me he knew exactly what was going on, and he wanted me to know that he was going to take care of the situation, and that he told me moving forward he was not going to schedule me with the person anymore. which honestly was very, very relieving. But at the same time, I don't know if he's even spoken with her, and she's not been showing up to work. She's been not really responding really much. Like, she's done a few no-call, no-shows, and she's also not really called the police to tell them that she's not coming in. She's told one management, but she hasn't called the store itself when she's really supposed to. Now, she does respond to other people, from what I've heard. Has she done this before? I have no idea. Do I really give a crap? Not really. To me, she's a disgrace. So, let's just put it this way. I'm grateful my boss is willing to help, but I am definitely drained by how I was treated. But I'm grateful I'm getting back on track for the help I need. But let's just talk about my arm, my hand and my arm. So, like I mentioned before, I've had no appetite, no thirst. I would have to pretty much, I'm explaining this part now though, but I basically would have to force myself to eat, force myself to drink something, and just get by the day. I pretty much, last night, after I tried to go to bed, I couldn't sleep. I was so overwhelmed, I couldn't get comfortable, and I just felt really lost. So ultimately, in the middle of the night, I go to my husband. I told him I wasn't feeling well, and I basically was just sick to my stomach. The sound of food, not even having a sip of water, really got out of me. Eventually, I go get checked out at the ER after, before 5 o'clock this morning, and I basically told doctors what I was feeling. So yeah, so I ended up going to the ER this morning, told doctors and everything how I was feeling, and I told them how I had a history of something kind of like this when I was 4 years old, where I came in not eating or drinking enough, and I was severely dehydrated, and they hospitalized me for a week and a half, 2 weeks. Because I was what I thought severely dehydrated, that I thought they weren't gonna send me home. But basically what they started to do, they had to get an IV in me. So the first time they did this, they couldn't find a vein. So they tried my hand, because I had just gotten a new tattoo right here, so they didn't want to obviously put it over my new one. If it was fully healed, I wouldn't have cared, but because it's brand new, I did not want them to go over it. But they did my hand, they got it with no problem. But they did that, and then I was able to walk around a little bit if I had to. And at one point, every now and then they would check in on me, seeing if I had to go to the bathroom, because they had to do a urine sample for me just to see if my urine was indicating anything like severely dehydration, things like that. This was around after 5 this morning, and mind you, I'm gonna be honest, I was not getting a lot of sleep the night before. So last night I probably slept an average 2 hours. That was it. Every time I tried to sleep, I'd wake back up again, or just tossed and turned and just couldn't get comfortable. It was also racing, so I just didn't have a lot of things to get my mind for me to go to bed. So after they finally got the IV in me and my hand and stuff, they said if you have to get up and go to the bathroom, you just let us know when you're ready to go, and you can just call us in when you're ready, which obviously that was on the remote that they gave me when I press a button, and then the nurse would come in. So eventually I get the courage to go to the bathroom. Of course, I was updating family and some friends what was going on. Eventually I got to go to the bathroom and do what I had to do, but they said, the doctor came in, tried asking me what was going on, and I told the doctor how I felt. They checked on my stomach, see if there was, any pain in my stomach. I said no, but I just feel really discomfort, just uncomfortable, because I haven't really eaten or drinking anything since last night. I drank a little bit of water before bed, but otherwise I didn't have anything since last night. So yeah, it was definitely really hard for me. But eventually, after I went to the bathroom, I came back because they wanted to do an IV of fluids on me so I could be hydrated, all that stuff. Thankfully, I wasn't dehydrated. I wasn't severely dehydrated like I had thought. But they said they wanted to give me like 2 bags worth of IV fluids, because the first one wasn't really working in my hand when they tried to give me IV of fluids. It was helping, but it was going really slow, so they wanted to get me another IV because they wanted to see if that one would go faster. So eventually that got going, but of course after that point, they told me once you start feeling better, then you can let us know, and then we'll let you know when you're safe to go home. Of course, thankfully, after they did my labs and stuff as well, and prior to that, and they said my labs came back fine. My urine came back fine, surprising, because I thought I was severely dehydrated, and they didn't think so. I didn't think so. But yeah, everything came back fine. My blood pressure was fine. My pulse, like my oxygen levels, those were also fine. Turns out I was just really stressed out. I've just been suffering from a lot of stress and anxiety, so that's really what's causing it. Of course, gave me an antibiotic that I can take, which I'm going to take probably for the next, it says 12 days, so after today, 11 days. And I'll just take it until I think I'm done. So I'll just take it until the meds are gone, and I'll just continue to take what I'm taking currently. But that being said, I'm trying my best to not think much about work right now because I'm off the rest of this week. I already talked to my boss from the job, and he said, "Are you coming back tomorrow or something?" And I said, "No, I'm out for the rest of the week." And I told him I was going to come in later, give him the doctor's note. And he understood. So I told him what my availability looks like for next week, and hopefully by tomorrow I'll know what I'm able to work for next week. As far as my medications go for what I'm taking, they do help me with my mental health. All of them really, pretty much, that I take. It's nothing, it's just something to keep me from not having another anxiety attack or something else. Obviously, I'm going to be honest, and I'm being honest with you guys. I have never, ever, ever been suicidal. I've never had a thing like that. Never wishing I was dead. Being grateful that I'm alive. I always am grateful I'm still alive, because mental health is not a joke. When you feel like something is seriously wrong, get the help you need right away, because if you sit and keep waiting, you may never get that chance to get help. And in my case, I'm glad I went when I did, because I actually knew I needed to get seen and get help. So at this point, I'm planning on trying to hope that what I'm taking for my anxiety will get better. What I'm feeling like I'm taking right now, it helps for a little while, but then I get back to being frustrated, overwhelmed, all that stuff again, and I don't need that. So that's all for now. As far as I know, like I said, my boss said moving forward, he just won't schedule me with that person anymore, and I hope and pray that it does work, because there's no way I could work with her again. Not after I was being treated. Not at all. I don't need her to ruin my life and make my mental health get back into a bad state again. But that's basically it. I'm gonna go now because I barely gotten any sleep at all, and I want to try to think, hopefully I can get a little nap in, because if I can just get a little cat nap, I might help from that, and then might as well just get through the rest of my day as I plan to. So I appreciate you guys being here and being supportive of me and just watching my videos. I know I don't upload that much, but when I do, I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to watch my videos. It really means a lot to me, and I'm just forever blessed. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. If you guys are also struggling with mental health, please, like I said before, go get the help you need, because it's really important. Alright, everybody, I hope to see you all in my next one, whenever that's posted. And as always, keep on going. Stay strong. Alright, see you guys in my next one. Follow me on Instagram, Threads, and Snapchat. Always down in the description below, and always at the end of each and every one of my videos. Thank you all for watching, and have a great rest of your day, whatever time you're watching this. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Stay strong.